Hello and welcome to Connecting Hope, presented by the Hamilton County Council on Alcohol and Other Drugs. I'm Will Hampton along with Monica GREER, and busy time for your council, everything happening?
Yeah, we've been real busy with traffic safety and doing all kinds of events now that we're moving forward, and drug take-backs, and
Yeah, that's coming up. April 24th
Yes.
is the next take-back at Riverview, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Yep, 9 to noon at the Noblesville Riverview location.
I've always kind of wondered, like if you have a pill box or whatever it's called, I'm calling it right, whatever, the prescription.
Yeah.
But it's got your name on it.
Yeah.
And you're like, I really don't want to give them that.
Yeah.
What do? Do you take the name off? Do you scratch it out?
You can take it off, but it's not easy to take off, but you could just take a Sharpie and go over it,
If you give it to them with the name still on it, what happens to it then?
It's not a big deal. It all goes to the incinerator, so nobody's going to see it. But if they want to feel more comfortable to get their name off there, just Sharpie works well.
That's coming up April 24th at the Noblesville Riverview. Another thing you recently had was the sobriety checkpoint.
Yes.
I was at one, I think last year or it was earlier, and this one was in March.
Yes.
A lot of people say, well, sobriety checkpoint, all you're trying to do is catch me. Well, kind of, but it's more about
more
trying
of an education.
Tell me the idea behind the sobriety checkpoints.
Yeah, Eric Massey with the prosecutor's office sits on our team, and he does a press release prior to the checkpoint, so educating the community that we are going to be out. But it's usually a couple hours at a time. We have separate stations set up. It's down to a science on how they do it. I don't, state statute on how they conduct it, but they randomly pull cars in and do checks, and they're in and out within a minute or so if nothing's going on. So.
Yeah, and normally when you're on the road, you can see it, and I've been told you actually, as long as you don't violate any laws, you'd actually turn left instead of going straight and avoid it if you want to, right?
Yes, there is signage prior to the checkpoint. So if you're driving and you see the sign that says you're approaching a checkpoint, there are turnoff roads that you can, if you don't want to go through it.
Not saying that's what you should do.
Yeah, sounds like you've done that.
No, I've never, ever done that. Hey, Kevin CRASK, Sergeant CRASK is going to join us in our next segment.
Yeah.
You have a big announcement about a big PSA that's about to happen.
Yes, yeah.
We're going to have that and much more as we continue here on Connecting Hope. Stay with us.
At one point, my parents picked up and moved us down to Florida. And it was down there that I met a guy. I was 17. I had pink hair. He had a mohawk. It was love at first sight. And turns out he was really heavily smoking marijuana. And that kind of blew the door open for me because it was the first time I tried it. And I had this notion in my head that marijuana was like horrible. I didn't even know kind of what to expect because I'd never been around it. And I thought to myself, oh, this isn't so bad. What else is out there? And that's when drugs and alcohol became the leading force in my life. It became what dictated my decisions, and I didn't do anything without it. So it took over every aspect of who I was and what I did and who I hung out with as well. I stopped hanging out with people that were responsible and goal setters and, moved forward in their life, and I got stuck in a rut where I just hung out with people that wanted to party. And when I got involved with crack cocaine use, that was like the bottom of the barrel for me. It went from just partying and hanging out with stoners to me going to the hood and peddling, like trying to pawn jewelry, and my living situation became I was awful. Depraved, I would call it depravity. It was the pits. I'd sit there absolutely suicidal sometimes at night, hoping to die.
Thank you again so very much for sharing. That's part one of tonight's success story. And we have a lot of them, but we need more, don't we?
Yes. If you have a success story that you wouldn't mind sharing, we would love to hear it. You can contact me at Monica GREER, MONICA.GREER at hamiltoncounty.in.gov.
What we've heard, I think, most on this show is people who have seen the success stories, and it triggered them to help tell their story. There's a lot of courage involved in this.
Yeah, a lot of courage, and we're just so happy that they're willing to do it. We know that it helps others.
Yep.
Yeah.
So now it's time to take that break, and coming up is Sergeant CRASK from the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, next here on Connecting Hope. Thank you for watching and welcome back to Connecting Hope Will Hampton, along with Monica GREER and Sergeant Kevin CRASK with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department.
Yep.
Good to have you on board.
Wow, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you were telling us you've been in law enforcement for 16 years.
Yeah, just last month was my 16-year anniversary.
Does it feel like 16 or does it feel like 36?
It does not. It feels like just yesterday.
Oh, really?
I was a 19-year-old kid when I started in law
for you.
enforcement. So
Yeah.
it feels like just yesterday.
I mean, the cliche question is, how has it changed? How has law enforcement changed in 16 years?
I mean, it's crazy. It's gotten a lot busier in the 16 years. You know, when I started my career in the jail, there were 5 of us working. And now I think there's like 22 or 23 jail officers assigned to each shift. And so that just tells you how much the county has boomed in the 16 years, and you know, sadly, how much more crime has been committed.
Yeah.
Well, and the population has grown significantly.
Yeah.
So.
We hear so much on the national stage about conflict between people and law enforcement. Tell me if I'm wrong. It doesn't feel like we have that same adversarial role in Hamilton County. Am I right or
We
wrong?
really don't. We have a really, really big support system here in the county. I mean, the community members have been great to us throughout this whole, the pandemic and even, some of the issues that arose last year in different states in Minnesota and things like that. We have a really big support system, and I'd say a couple days a week. When you go out to dinner, at least one or 2 days, somebody's buying your dinner.
Well, that's great.
And I think it's even increased in the last year or two. So, yeah, it's we really haven't seen it. I mean, we see it some, sure, but not nearly as bad as some of the other cities have.
Yeah. You've undergone a couple of sheriff changes.
And this is number 3 for me.
It's number 3. How does that transition happen, and how does it work pretty smoothly most times, or?
I think so. For the most part, it does. I mean, the good thing is that I came in, I got hired under Sheriff Carter, and then I came back under Sheriff Bowen, and now with Sheriff Quakenbush, at least Sheriff Bowen and Sheriff Quakenbush have spent their entire career at the sheriff's office, so we all know them. Sheriff Quakenbush was my patrol captain before he was elected sheriff. So, and he was a night shift deputy when I was working night shift in the jail. So, I've known him for a long time, and it makes the transition easier when it's somebody you know.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, and it seems like, just outside looking in, it seems like you have great communication and great group of people to work with.
Yeah, we really do. I mean, the guys and gals at the agency, I mean, they're second to none. I'd put them up against any big city agency or big county agency in the country. We have a really good group of people, and they know exactly what they're doing, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Good.
A lot of people may know you from late at night. You get involved in the DUIs and the OWIs.
Yep.
Is that your specific kind of your target, so to speak?
Yeah, that's just something that I've always liked. There was a Nobles officer that I used to ride with in high school, and his name was Jeremy Stanley. He's no longer with the police department, but I used to ride with him in high school, and he was very big into getting DUIs. And I think that just seeing his passion and his drive for it just kind of translated. So when I got hired on the street, that just was one of the things that I really went after. And on night shift, not many more things you can go after. It's drunks or drugs, and marijuana gives me a headache instantly, so I don't want any of that in my car. But yeah, I really like going out and chasing the drunks down and getting them off the street.
Yeah. And you're doing it, if people watching this say, well, the guy's trying to target me. No, what he's trying to do is save your life. And that's really what people maybe, yes, it's difficult if you get pulled over.
Yeah.
But that you're looking at it is, I'm trying to save not only their life, but other people
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. And the reality of it is that over 10,000 people a year lose their lives in this country to drunk driving, and that's not something that we as a community really think about. And I think we arrest in Hamilton County total between all the agencies about 1,000 people a year.
Wow.
So couple per day. And nights and weekends are a little bit higher. Certain holidays are a little bit higher, and it's not us, trying to ruin somebody's lives at all. It's us trying to help them and prevent them from crashing into somebody and hurting somebody. I grew up here. My family's been in Noblesville for well over 100 years, and I've got a lot of family out driving around. And I certainly don't want any one of them to get hurt.
No.
Yeah.
So,
And we're about to announce a big project that you're working on with the Hamilton County Council now with these guys.
Yeah. We are developing a PSA, a DUI PSA. We're working with the prosecutor's office, the sheriff's department, and thank you to the sheriff's department for helping organize all of this.
Yeah.
We're going to do some scenes from the jail itself and then go to the courthouse and do some clips there. But we've not had a DUI PSA or educational piece in a while done in Hamilton County.
Yep.
So I was glad that you and Eric stepped up and decided to do that.
yeah,
you want
it
to talk
was-
about that?
Yeah, it was. There was a video that was put out when I was younger. I was middle school, maybe even elementary school, and it was called End Result. And I remember my dad showing it to me, and it was just a compilation of a lot of fatal crashes involving impaired driving. And that video has kind of always stuck with me throughout my life and now into my career. And with Eric Massey at the prosecutor's office being our crash team prosecutor, I hit him up one day and I'm like, hey, what do you think about kind of reviving this? And obviously he was all on board, so that's when we reached out to you.
Yeah, I'm so glad you did, because it's definitely needed, and I think with the platforms that we have with social media and with the schools and everything, we're going to be able to really do some education and help people, hopefully deter them from making bad decisions.
Yeah.
We want to help. We want to thank Jeff Elliott and the people here at TV40.
Yes.
They're a part of it. They're a partner to make this all happen. And
Yeah.
I know we're gonna put a dramatization together of you having to tell a loved one, to tell a family member that someone lost their life in a fatal drunk driving accident. That has got to be your number one toughest job by far.
Yeah, hands down. If I never had to do it again in my life, it'd be too soon.
Yeah.
We had one Father's Day morning this past year, 2020. That one sticks out to me. It was a 25-year-old kid that was, unfortunately lost his life in a single vehicle crash, and he'd been drinking. And I remember that drive to his parents' house was probably the longest drive I've ever made. Just thinking about what was going to happen, how their reaction was going to be, how my reaction was going to be, because, we have this persona as a big tough police officer, but I'm a dad too.
Yeah.
And heaven forbid somebody knocked on my door to tell me that one of my babies had died in a crash. So it was it's not fun at all, and I don't wish that upon anybody. But it's a necessary part of the job, and for us to be able to provide some closure to family members is somewhat comforting, but right there in the moment, it's not fun at all.
And a lot of what this is about is education.
Yep.
And I think that's what you and Eric and Monica, what you're about.
Yeah.
Is there are so many resources for people if they're having a party and they're drinking. Don't get behind the wheel.
Yeah, the resources are pretty much unlimited now with Uber and Lyft and all these other ride shares. I think I've even heard of one where they'll send two drivers, one that picks up your car and and then a chase car. So, certainly that would cost a little bit of money, but I think it's a lot less than going to jail and having to retain an attorney and going through legal proceedings. So
Well, and I saw where some of the establishments are providing rides themselves
Yeah.
if you live within a certain radius of their place. So
yeah,
that's a plus too.
yeah. It's I mean, you know, our whole goal, if we didn't make another arrest, I mean, that's the goal, right? It's not going to ever happen.
Yeah.
But you know, we don't want to make those arrests. And,
No.
so
Well, good. Well, thank you for what
Thank
you're
you
doing.
so
yeah,
much.
thank you.
Looking forward to putting this PSA together. And,
Yeah, I think it'll be fun.
yeah, it'll be super to help people. That's
Yeah,
what it's about.
that's all. Yeah, that's all we want to do is help people.
Yeah. Sergeant
Thank you.
Crest, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're taking a break. Back with more Connecting Hope after this. And welcome back to Connecting Hope. It's always a pleasure to have some of our law enforcement officers in, and Sergeant Crask was in last segment. But one thing we didn't talk about was what's going to happen with that PSA that we're building here.
Sure. Yeah, we're going to blast it to anybody that wants to see it. Definitely through the schools. We're going to put it on social media. If anyone watching would like to have access to that, to put it on their website or their social media, we would love to just get it in the hands of anybody that would be willing to share it.
And some of this, it's designed and targeted towards young drivers, but not so much here. This is any driver, right?
Right, yeah, we want to educate everyone that impaired driving is dangerous. And like Sergeant Crask said, there are many options that people can choose to get a ride home safely.
Yeah, all right, interesting. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 of tonight's success story.
Well, when I first started getting in trouble, it was the thought when you're doing this, when I'm doing this, was it can't happen to me. There's no way I could get caught. I'm just young and living it up. It's just a lifestyle choice to have fun. Like, I didn't think that there was any consequences to my actions. I didn't think very seriously about it. And when I did start getting in trouble and getting put away, and it became kind of an annoyance at first, and then the very last time when I was threatened with real prison time, that's when it really sank in that this is my life. Then that led into a relationship with Christ, and that's ultimately where this all leads for me, is my dad had sent me a prayer in jail, and I don't know why, but I just started to pray, and it really woke me up. I needed a period where I just dried up from the drugs and the alcohol in order to have some mental clarity, because my head was so fogged up with my own delusion that this was all okay, and that the trouble was just annoying, and reality set in, and whether or not this was how I wanted to live my life. And I hate to say this, but seeing some of the other girls in there that were farther gone than I was at that point really scared me straight. I went to Terror Treatment Center in Franklin and met a lot of women that helped lead me there. And for whatever reason at that point, I just began to listen to what people said and took advice about being honest and recalibrating my brain to focus on what I have to be grateful for rather than my own pity party, pitiful sadness or the delusions, really. I believe that God is who pulled me out from addiction. I believe that, there's no doubt in my mind. And then it wasn't until later in my recovery that I came to salvation and came to know Christ. Because at first it was God, it was just a notion. It was just God, G-O-D. It wasn't very much else. And then later in life, I think it was like 4 years into my recovery, is when I came to know Jesus. I've got chickens, I've got hopefully goats one day, I've got 2 kids. That's, I mean, an unbelievable blessing that came out of all of this. I never even knew I wanted kids until I had them, which is, you know, awesome. And they're a point of accountability for me and a source of, I was just writing about this last night, is that my children are what helped me to be absolutely selfless. We could get sober, but we're not going to remain sober if we keep bad company around. And that's a huge aspect of it for me, is making sure that I'm surrounded by people that want to do well for themselves, that want to see me do well for myself and have my children's interests at heart as well, because they're in this too. It's not about me anymore.
Thank you again for sharing, and each and every week it amazes me the stories that they tell, and so many times how much faith is involved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're so fortunate that people are willing to share every week, and hopefully some others will reach out and want to share their story.
Well, that's the name of the show, Connecting Hope.
Connecting Hope.
Yep, that's what it's all about.
Yep.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll close out this edition. One more little mention about the drug take back that's big, that's coming up real soon.
April 24th, 9 to noon.
We'll have that and much more when we continue here on Connecting Hope. Stay with us. And welcome back to Connecting Hope, presented by the Hamilton County Council on Alcohol and Other Drugs. Will Hampton with Monica Greer. Closing out another week, but again, want to say thank you to Sergeant Kevin CRASK and his dad. We just call him Coach CRASK, was a great softball coach and coached my daughter Maggie over at Noblesville High School. And so
Very nice.
he comes from good genes, is where
Yeah.
he comes from, huh?
He's a good guy.
Thank you, Sergeant, for joining us tonight. And again, I know we've talked a lot about it, but I'm big on this drug take back. It's coming
Yes.
up April 24th at Riverview in Noblesville.
Yes.
Again, the process is people just collect it all, get a big bag of it, and bring it to you, right?
It doesn't have to be neat and tidy, just throw it in a bag. And we are also accepting vape devices. So if you've quit smoking and want to get rid of the devices, we are accepting those as well.
Wow, we've had Stacy London on this show from Breathe Easy, Hamilton County. A lot of people underestimate the harmful damage,
Yes.
the redundancy there with what vaping does,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's terrible for the lungs. I mean, it's bad.
Yep. Things are good for you, though, as far as Hamilton County Council?
Yep. Doing
Everything
good.
working? All right.
Yep.
Thank you again for another great week.
Thank you.
And again, thanks to Sergeant CRASK and everybody who make this show possible here at TV40. We thank you. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
And you'll be watching, I hope, right here on Connecting Hope. Thanks.